Hello. Happy Friday. We got a little bit of lo-fi going because it's the first Friday of 2025, and what better way to start it off with our first guild goes live, but with a little bit of chill. Just a little bit. Don't worry, we're gonna get into some harder stuff in a minute. But just as people are maybe coming in, saying hi in the chat, hopefully you are. Hello, LinkedIn. Hello, YouTube. My name is Liz DiFiore, and I am the immediate past president of the Graphic Artists Guild. It's really good to be here. It's been a while since I've been on a Guild Goes Live, and let me tell you, nothing makes you question your natural posture more than seeing yourself in a mirrored camera. I keep seeing myself and being like, why are my glasses slightly tilted? For anyone here who has experimented or has been doing streaming over the past year or is new to it, I would love to hear some commiseration on the whole mirroring thing. So let's see. Today, I want to talk to you guys about advocacy, and we're not going to get into the really hard advocacy of, like going to Capitol Hill and lobbying and making bills and changing the world. Well, we are going to be talking about changing the world, but not on that scale, because you know what? There's going to be a lot of that talk over this next year. I think you all know. I think everyone knows that there's going to be a lot of talk over this next year about heavier types of advocacy and how to make a really big impact. But today I really want to talk about advocacy on a much more personal level and going up just as far as like community based, because that's really important. And honestly, it's sometimes more impactful on your life and your career than even the wide-ranging type of advocacy work that the Guild does on a much more like federal and state level, because those changes, they come really slowly. The bureaucracy, it bureaucracies, it bureaucrats, it bureaucrats, and it takes a really long time to make big change on the federal and state level, on the law level, and even on like large corporation scale, it can take a long time. Even if you're not having to deal with laws specifically, but despite anyone's best efforts, it's always going to take a really long time for that kind of advocacy to take hold. But what can take hold pretty immediately is personal advocacy. That's you. That's you. And so if there's anybody watching who wants to share, I'd love for you to say hi in the chat, tell me who you are, what you do, where you're from, and also just tell me what kind of personal advocacy you have experience with or have or want to have experience with, because I want to share some stories about those smaller actions that end up being just as impacting, sometimes more impacting than the larger overarching based projects that I think many of us hope for, but again, it takes a really long time. Hi, Leanne from DC. Hello, how are your holidays? How's your new year kicking off? Tell us what kind of artist you are. Leanne is one of our board members, actually. So it's really nice to see her here. So I think I'll kick off by just sharing a couple of my own stories of personal advocacy within our industry. I am a children's illustrator. At the moment, I'm working full-time as a community engagement manager for a community media station in Beverly, Massachusetts. And if you don't know what that means, it's a not for profit, and I do artwork and marketing collateral, and I do social media and community management stuff for them, which kind of pigeonholes or dovetails is what I want to say. I'm pretty well into my passion for children's illustration, which is what I used to do full time, and now I do part time. Um, and so what I've kind of done with structuring this last year for myself is I wanted to make an impact on a local level, really hyper local level within my industry. So I reached out to my local art college, which is Montserrat College of Art. It's located right in our downtown. And I started being a professional mentor with them. I started doing like mock interviews for their graduating illustration students and some of their animation students, doing professional portfolio reviews for them, and uh, and just in general, like getting to interact with any of their students, either through internships with my current company um, or just like when I find people kind of out and about, or if any time somebody reaches out to me, I've encouraged professors to have students reach out to me with questions. I try to spend a lot of time, like some sincere time, with any student who is looking to make their way in this industry as mostly as a freelancer, because that's where my experience is. But of course, I have resources I can help give if somebody like wants to work for a studio or a firm. Hello, Joan from Shaker Heights, Ohio. Hey, you used to live in Wellesley. That's wonderful. Currently working on graphic stories. That's awesome. That's awesome. So, for anybody new coming in, I want to hear some stories about personal advocacy for yourself within your industry. And so, what I'm getting at with my story is that I really want to leave the industry better than I found it, and by doing and to do that, I take a lot that I've learned from the Graphic Artists Guild, right? Like I've been a volunteer with the guild for like 6 or 7 years now, I think. And of course, I've done like every volunteer job in the guild at this point, right? Like from boots on the ground volunteer to regional rep up through president. So, I've had like a lot. I've got a lot of resources through the guild that I've learned. And my goal, like one of the things that keeps me really motivated, is just passing on as much of that as I can to students. So doing like webinars for college classes, or being a professional mentor. You don't think about these things as advocacy efforts often. I feel like a lot of the time we kind of like lump these sorts of actions in with just like, oh, I'm doing education, which is fine. But I think what's important is being able to recognize that those are advocacy efforts. Whenever you're encouraging an artist who's either new to the industry, or they're still at a point where they're like uncomfortable with what they're making, whenever you encourage them to raise their prices and to like teach them how to confidently raise their prices, whenever you do something like looking through doing a portfolio review and helping somebody understand how to conduct themselves in an interview, where they're obviously they're not in a position of power, but they can still have and hold on to their own self-respect as a professional. Doing things like saying, don't do work on spec, and encouraging people to ask for a little bit more of a rate than maybe they would have otherwise be comfortable asking for. Whenever you do that, those are small works of advocacy that really have a huge impact. So yeah, That's what I wanted to talk about today. So I'd love to hear if anybody has any personal stories of like small works of advocacy. Um, the Guild, of course, does a lot on this scale as well. We've done webinars for college classes where it's like one of my favorite things that I participated in was a webinar series called Mistakes I've Made. And it was basically like 3 or 4 of us who had been in our positions for anywhere between like 1 to 5-ish years as a professional. And the reason for that being that, we wanted to be fresh enough that we could remember mistakes that we'd made, but also like uh, not so uh, not so new that we were still like feeling really green to what we were doing. um, and we were just like being really vulnerable with the students and bringing up all sorts of stories that we had struggled with as um, new professionals. um, Sorry, as new professionals and artists, that sometimes I think can be embarrassing to admit. um, Certainly, like, oh my gosh, one of them was like, always get an EIN number, an employee identification number. They were like, yeah, that's something I learned, was always get an EIN number. And I was sitting there in the webinar going like, what's an EIN number? I had been in my position for maybe 3 years at that point. Yeah, I had been a professional for like 3 years, and I was like, "What's an EIN number?" um, so being being that vulnerable in front of students, I think, really helped normalize um, asking for help and admitting to things you don't know. And we were able to really talk about like some nitty-gritty stuff about being a professional that the students otherwise didn't have access to, right? Like it didn't just come up in class, it didn't come up in conversation unless you specifically brought it up. I don't know if some of you have, but I grew up in a household where we didn't really talk about money. um, and money was always considered something that was really private. You don't talk about it with other people. And so that was one of the biggest things that I had to learn as a budding professional, was how to be vulnerable about money regarding my business and ask for help, and be willing to receive different advice, and being able to you know compare those things and take that in. Uh, so again, we're going back to those small acts of advocacy. Uh, we're talking about those little things you can do, or maybe you are already doing, to help bring those sorts of really important conversations into the light, into the public light. Um, what are some conversations that you find to be difficult to have regarding your profession? I would love, like, if you're available, type in the chat, let me know. Um, what what are conversations that either like you previously had a really hard time with, and now you're a lot more just boisterous about it? Um, or what are some things that you're not sure are appropriate to have between other professionals? Another sort of block that I see with professionals on a small community scale can be uh, being afraid of competition. This is, I don't think this is as prominent with illustrators, but I've seen it with other creatives where, like, especially if it's involving different firms, and sometimes they don't want to talk to each other because they're worried about like losing a competitive advantage. But what we lose there is not a competitive advantage, but in fact, the ability for like both businesses to grow. right? Like the economy is not a finite pie that everybody gets a slice of and then it's done. Um, it's something that can be spread and grown together. And when people come together and share their pitfalls and be vulnerable with each other and share, uncertainties, they're able to often find better solutions that benefit everyone. Uh, so yeah, we're talking about those kinds of small acts of advocacy. We'll get to the uh, you we could talk about how you can go and join your cultural council, or you could um, uh, you can join an advocacy group that regularly goes to your state house and talk to your representatives. Um, those are really big steps. And if there's one thing I've learned about like New Year's resolutions, right now is the perfect time to take baby steps, not big steps. Big steps will come later. Let me tell you, Q2 is gonna be big. Q2 will be big, especially for advocacy. But right now, as you're writing down your goals for the year, as you are putting together your vision boards, as you're putting together your resolutions, if you do those, think about the baby steps that can be done. That's a much higher chance that you'll actually follow through on it. Like, how many people go into a project thinking, I'm going to cold call all of my representatives and tell them how important it is that they protect artists' rights? Would that be good? Of course, that would be wonderful. That would have a great impact. But how many of us are comfortable cold calling representatives to talk about something like that? Almost none. Almost none. Um, I'm one of those people. I'm weird. I get it. I'm weird. But also I've had a lot of experience cold calling. If you don't have a lot of experience cold calling, it's way harder to do. Don't start there. Don't be like, I need to be a better advocate as an artist. So if I don't start cold calling representatives, then I'm a failure as an advocate for my industry. Get that out of there. Get that out of there. No, we're starting with baby steps that are just as impactful, just as powerful, sometimes more so. Change one person's life by helping them with something. Go to a meetup or like meetup.com. Look for artist groups who are just like getting together, or start one if you want to. That's a little bit more than a baby step, but if you're that kind of person, some of us are, start a group. Go talk about how to talk to clients so that they're okay with you raising prices. Oh my God, that would be huge. To be able to get people comfortable with you charging more for your work. No, for you charging what you're worth for your work. That would be huge. Being able to spread that knowledge is even bigger. Talk about impact. One of the reasons that we see things like illustrator wages decrease over the years, a lot of it has to do with the internet commodifying those skills. I know you see it with other industries too. I talk about illustration because that's where I am and I'm most familiar with it. But you see those wages go down, and a lot of it is like because people kind of they've got that Fiverr mentality, right? It's like, oh well, but I could get this for $5 elsewhere. And it can be really intimidating going into a conversation about why you should not be charging $5 for something that costs $300. And you don't have to go into that alone. You can work with other people. You can join communities like the Guild and learn how to have those conversations in a more confident way. And then when you learn, you get to pass on those skills. And that's that chain reaction of small advocacy steps. It's those things that are more powerful than some of the bigger steps, even though it can feel like it's not. So, what am I asking of you today? Today, I'm asking you on December, listen to me, January 3rd, 2025, I'm asking you to make a resolution to take a baby advocacy step for your industry. If you're working on graphic novels, if you're working on infographics, if you're working on children's picture books, if you're an animator, if you're in the games industry, oh, don't get me started on that. Can you tell? Whoop, there he is. Can you tell that I'm a gamer? um, how do we support each other with these small acts of advocacy? How do we empower each other? How do we embrace confidence in our own worth? These are the things I want you to focus on as you're going into the new year, because you're entirely capable of taking baby steps. And once you take those small steps and you start to see some of the impact that you've had on someone else, once you start to see the impact it's had on you, then you get to take those bigger steps. Then maybe when you're watching the guild newsletter sometime and you see that we're going to have a hill day and we want artists to come to DC and we need to lobby for some sort of bill that's really going to help strengthen advocacy, like copyrights for artists. Maybe you can help us achieve some of those big things then. But in the meantime, those small acts of advocacy, those baby steps, we need those more. We need those more than those big steps. That's how we make the industry better than we found it. So if you're just coming in, if you've got any little small acts of advocacy stories you want to share, or just say hi in the chat and let me know what kind of artist you are and where you're from. Feel free. Hello, LinkedIn. Hello, YouTube. Welcome to your little bit of inspiration for the day. Hopefully it's a little bit of inspiration for the day. I feel like advocacy can be a really hard topic to talk about and want to listen to because it can get so overwhelming. It can just feel like, I remember members talking to me sometimes about how they just felt like the industry was never changing. Everything they did, everything they saw that was like attempted, it just wasn't working. Things were always changing for the worse. It can feel really disillusioning when you've been at it for a while. Hi, Rachel. Speaking of advocacy, Rachel is one of our advocacy rock stars on the advocacy committee. She knows a lot about small acts of advocacy as well as the big ones. Hello. It can feel really disillusioning. Sometimes it can be really hard to think about how your small acts can make things change for the better. But, if everyone has a piece of straw and they all put it into a pile, suddenly you have a huge hay bale and everyone gets to benefit from that. That's what I'm talking about. You have to be able to accept and witness the power of your small practices, your small steps. How do you run a marathon? You take a step. It's the same thing with making the industry a better place, a more positive place, for making your industry better, for making your career better. It all has to do with the collective effort of those small steps. So what is your resolution for this year? What are you hoping to accomplish in your career? What are some of the small things you want to accomplish as an artist, as a professional creative? And it's okay. It doesn't have to be advocacy right now. Just put in the chat, not those big, glorious resolutions, not the big, glorious goals, I could say, oh, I want to go to Japan this year. It's like, Great. Okay. Maybe that'll happen. Maybe it will. But let's talk about the little things. What do I want to accomplish this year? I want to I want to be a professional mentor again this year. I want to participate in my local art college's professional mock interviews again. That's one of the small steps for me because I really enjoy um, interviewing people. I don't like being the interviewee as much. I don't think anybody likes that, but I can help people be more comfortable there, right? I can help them have a better chance of getting a job when they're just coming out of college because my experience is really helpful there, right? And that's something that they just don't have. So those are my small acts that I are like part of my resolution. Many hands make light work. That's what Rachel says. Absolutely, we can do it together. Collective action is the way. That's why the guild is here, right? That's the whole point of the Graphic Artist Guild. That's the whole point of why we're here. It's it's a creative collective. And there are smaller groups than the guild too. There are hyper local groups, and if there isn't one, maybe you could be the start of one in your area. Maybe, or get involved into an online group. One of the things that I have a regular illustration crit group that I attend, as many of us do in the industry. Like once a month, we bring our work and we talk about, the issues that we're having, and we help each other out with our portfolios. But what we also do is we talk about money, and um, we talk about negotiations. We talk about how to how to structure our strategy for reaching out to agents and art directors and such. We don't just talk about the artwork. In fact, a lot of the time we're not talking about the artwork. And that's because we are trying to help each other do better as professionals. Rachel says, my humble opinion, every working artist should get in touch with the advocacy committee in the guild because it's definitely a massive effort. I believe it's our possible chance to make change. I agree. The advocacy committee was one of the first places I started as just a regular volunteer. And it did a lot to help me grow as a professional. Oh gosh, I was so new to the industry. I didn't know anyone. I had quit I'd quit my job. I'd quit my full-time job as a marketer to become a full-time freelance children's illustrator in an area I was brand new to. We had just moved to New England, so I didn't know anybody. I didn't have any connections in the industry, nothing. I had been out of art for a while, so my portfolio was terrible. um, and I know some of you have been there. I know I'm not the only one who just jumped off the tall diving board without any plan. Joining the advocacy committee as a regular volunteer was incredibly instrumental to me being able to achieve some of those first jobs that I had. Like understanding some basic contract language, being able to have some confidence to negotiate, thinking about like what my pricing structure should be. At the time, Rebecca Blake, dear colleague and the previous advocacy liaison, she took her personal time to sit down with me and really teach me how to be a professional. And that, she was one of my mentors. And so, I'm looking to pass on that same experience and to be that for another artist who's new to the industry, who doesn't know what they're doing, who knows no one. And just, open up what resources I can. Those are my small acts of advocacy. Rachel says, everyone I know has the same issues, and we vent about the issues to each other, but this is the avenue to make policy changes that affect working creatives. And those policy changes, those big changes, they'll come after the small steps. And those are the important footprints. That's how you make a road. All those small footsteps. So I will leave you with that thought. What are your baby steps you're going to make as a professional at the beginning of this year? And hopefully, you'll reach out to the guild about the advocacy committee if you are interested. It'd be super cool. The more, the merrier. Um, but if you're not there yet, that's okay too. Just take those first baby steps. Hi, Alana from New York. Hey, hey. I work as an assistant art director, an in-house editorial illustrator. I do freelance work on the side. Being involved in the guild's advocacy group sounds nice, but I feel too busy to take on another thing. Totally understandable. That's why we're talking about those baby steps. What are those small things you can do as a professional to what are those small acts of advocacy that you can do? The mentoring of a student or um, you know, being a part of a monthly artist group where you guys talk about pricing or about negotiation tactics. Um, what are those small things? Joan says, I attended a show off and tell. People share tips that are really useful. Oh, the show off and tell is great. That's a virtual event that the Guild's New England region started. And yeah, highly recommend, like, if you feel like you're low on time, those are really great. They're entirely virtual. They happen like once a month-ish. And usually involves a little bit of doodling, a lot of sharing of people's things that they're proud of, and then, talking about any issues that they have and how to solve some of those problems together. And, sometimes some of the more experienced guild members will show up and share their advice, and other times people will, workshop things together. So I think it's the end of my time. If you haven't already, I highly recommend you attend the membership orientation webinar. They happen somewhat regularly, and the next one is actually today at 2 Eastern. I'm going to be running it. So if you haven't yet, and you're not sure what your guild membership gets you, really recommend you check out the membership orientation and do something small. Take a small step. Do something for you as a professional, for your industry, for somebody new coming into the industry. And be empowered by that impact that you have. It's small, but it's pretty mighty. I'll leave you there. I'm Liz DiFiore, and I am the immediate past president of the Graphic Artists Guild. It's been a wonderful time here with you all, and I hope to see you next time. Enjoy the beginning of your year.